Hello everybody, welcome to episode number 5 of the Real Talk Real Estate Show. I have a question for you. First, you ever been out shopping for a home, bumped into the perfect house, you can't live without it, and then you find out it's competitive, there's multiple contracts? Well, if so, this episode is for you. Washington, D.C. real estate. Fiercely competitive and always changing. Where people from all corners of the world come to make their mark. So on this show, we get real. Real about what actually matters. Where I show you what's behind the curtain. And you get a new perspective. Because having the knowledge and insight means the difference between winning and losing. Welcome to Real Talk Real Estate. Hey, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about how to succeed in a competitive offer situation. It's a buyer's worst nightmare. I mean, believe me, it's a buyer's agent's worst nightmare in a way too. You've been out looking at houses sometimes 6 months, a year, and you finally bump into the one you can't live without, and then you find out you may not even be able to get it. Doesn't matter what you offer, because someone else is willing to do the same. So I'm going to jump right into ways that you can structure your contract to be ultimately successful. It's frustrating. In DC, any metro market, it's so typical. So this is something we confront a lot, and over 11 years, I've developed some strategies that I've seen win and work. And I'll tell you something about me if you don't know this. I freaking hate losing. I mean, I hate it. It's like something that really bothers me. So when I'm working with a client, these are things that I just say, let's be competitive and let's be successful. And the number one thing that we can start by doing is making you a personal person, which sounds kind of strange, right? Personal person. But until you actually do something to change that, you're just a contract to whoever that seller is. You're a name on a paper. You have no story, you have no face. So the first thing that we can do is we can actually create a letter, write something specific to that seller, telling who you are, talk about your family, talk about the reasons that you fell in love with their house. You don't, spare no expense as far as like appeal to their emotions, make it so personal, so over the top that you think it's kind of sick when you read it. But I'll tell you one thing, if you've watched episodes 1 through 4, you'll hear me say it time and time again. Sellers are emotional people. Even developers are emotional, believe me. I mean, they're investors, but they're invested. They're emotional. They want to know something. And so the best thing you can do as a buyer is make yourself like that person that they don't want to disappoint. They don't want to let you down. And so if all things are equal, if I'm looking at 2 identical contracts, but one I can just like understand and I've gotten into their head and I can see why they love my property so much, who do you think I'm going to go with? Who would you go with? The one that's just a piece of paper, or someone that has a story? So it's really something that you should be doing no matter what, but when it's competitive, gosh, that's so important to do. So that's number one. Another thing that you need to do is make sure that your agent is finding out, doing their research, finding out exactly what it is that seller wants, because every seller is different. I mean, we all know sellers want a lot of money. They want top dollar. Sure, that's easy to say, and when it's competitive, you're probably going to end up paying their price or even more in some cases, but there's many other factors that sellers are going to take into account when they're selecting a contract. So it's kind of like the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie, one of my favorite books. That book talks about over and over again, find out what people want and give that to them. And that's the best way you can make connections and sales in other ways. Well, it's the same thing whenever you're working toward a competitive situation. You want to make sure that you are giving the seller exactly what they want, not garbage they don't care about. You can waive that contingency. Well, guess what? If that contingency wasn't on their list of concerns, you just waive something for the heck of it. Doesn't mean shit. So I mean, it's something that you want to structure specifically, and your agent should be helping in that process. But here's where your job comes in. You've hired the right agent, they found out what they want. Well, guess what? You can't major in the minors. It's like, I can't tell you how many buyers I've worked with where they're sweating the small stuff. And to them it's about being emotional. I need to feel like I'm winning something in this deal. I'm not winning anything. Well, in reality, you're winning the house. Don't lose the forest of the trees. I mean, be focused on the end goal, acquiring the property. You don't want to pay too much, but you're certainly going to have to not sweat the small stuff if it's competitive. So leave your emotions out of it. Don't get too involved with what you're not getting or what you're giving up to get the contract. Listen, just don't sweat the small stuff. It's super easy, much harder to do, but it's something that you're going to have to wrap your mind around if you're going to be successful. And here's a couple other specifics. I'll hammer them out real quick as far as structuring an offer goes. Number one, look at the general inspection, home inspection contingency. A typical home inspection means you have a certain amount of days to inspect, ask for money or repairs from a seller. Well, if you do the general inspection, you get the same rights, privileges from the home inspection. You can still back out if you inspect and you find a huge crack in the foundation and you don't want the house anymore. All that's still true, but you're going forward by announcing to the seller in your contract that you're not going to negotiate dollars and cents or repairs. And I'll be honest with you, most home inspections, you're getting hundreds of dollars at most. A couple thousand is pretty extreme. So to waive that right to be successful to get the property, what you're doing is you're telling the seller, I'm not going to sweat the small stuff on the inspection. I just want to make sure the house is in good enough repair that I feel comfortable moving forward. And sellers love that. Also, shorten that window of time if at all possible. So general inspection, not home inspection. Another thing that you can look at is implementing the escalation clause, which basically is a statement that I'm willing to go above and beyond the asking price if necessary to beat out a competitive offer. The tricky part about this is that you're willing to go up, but even if you are accepted, you still have hopefully that general inspection or home inspection contingency built into your contract that you have a way out. So if you felt like you did this and you paid too much, you still have a period of time where you can solidify that decision. And I'm not saying go into it with the wrong intentions, but at the end of the day, putting in an escalation clause to beat out the higher price of somebody else will ultimately put you in a position where you can walk away, but you are also in a position to be successful. So it's really critical. And the last piece of advice I'll leave you with is just try to put your best foot forward. Don't play the game. The game is for losers. The game is about getting where you need to be and getting the house that you fell in love with. And in order to do that, you just want to start by putting your best foot forward. Don't go into this thing sweating the pennies, sweating the small stuff. Just go forward, act with confidence, and ultimately, if you do these couple things, you will be successful. So I think I want to leave it there for today. Again, this episode was geared toward how to win in a competitive situation. If you have specific questions on that, feel free to send us a message. Use the hashtag AskJohnFox. We will answer them. But in the meantime, I think if you follow this advice, you will be successful. Look forward to talking again soon.